I am Lizzy with Long Distance Gamers, and today I'm going to be talking about the spill. What do I think about it, and how do we play it remotely? Okay, so here we have the spill mostly set up. So what the running side has done, they're the ones that they for sure have a copy of this game, and they do play it like normal. So what they will do is they will place everything like this. They will place the 8 dice into here, and oh, that actually rolled the exact same. And we'll place them out. Every player will choose which one of these characters they want to play. And then the running side will go ahead and pull out the win conditions. Everyone will decide if they want to play easy, medium, or hard. So if we want to play easy, we would just shuffle them up. The running side will just shuffle them up and choose one and say balanced response is the one that we're going to do, which the names are all right there. So you can pull that out and, just save 2 contaminated, remove 10 oils, and we need to do 3 full sets of these. And these get put back in the box. The next thing the running side will do is shuffle up these resource cards and give 2 to each player. The nice thing about these, they're named on the top. So they can just set them out to each player. And then put the rest of them over here in a deck. I always leave it face up because I'm always the remote side. So I will have to go through this throughout the game to pull out the ones that they say. So for instance, I might have, if I'm the hazmat specialist, they will go ahead and say which ones everyone is. And they'll say you have the dredge and the containment boom. So I will look back at this. This one, remove an oil dye from your sector and place it in the removed oil. I mean, that's really easy for one. Or push back. So considering that I can remove oil really easily, I might choose to do the containment boom. So this running side will go through everyone, ask them which ones we kept. And so I will say, hey, I kept the containment boom. And then while everyone else is selecting which ones they've kept, I will go ahead and be pulling them out and putting them in the resources, just going off that title on there. And then, of course, leaving these face up besides this board out of the playing area so that I know none of them are active, but that they're easily able to be reached. Another thing I do is I keep all of the oil dice out of the oil bag, because normally the running side will go ahead and put all of the dice in here, plus these 4 weather into there, but that way I can grab them out. Running side will go through each quadrant, so A, B, C, and D, and it's listed right here on the board, and say what oil there are. So we have a 2 in quadrant 1. For quadrant B, we have a 1, a 3, and 2 6s, and they'll do that for everyone, and then they will say the person, or they could have each person roll just, if me being the hazmat specialist, I'm in A, I roll a 5, so I would get placed on the 5. So then what happens is you just play the game like normal. The running side may do this if the people do not have a copy of the game, or if you do have a copy, the running side will just dictate which ones there are. So if I am the first player, we look over here, I only have to draw 3 dice, so I will draw the 3 dice. The running side may put them in there, but I love dropping the dice, so I'll go ahead and do it. So I say I have 2 5s in quadrant 1, or quadrant A, and a 4 in quadrant C. So everyone will update their boards, and because we have this animal with a die, it does get contaminated. It does not go to the sick bay unless it is left with this oil dye at the end of the turn. My turn starts, I go ahead and I get 4 action points. So I might choose to go ahead and go 1, 2, because for me, it normally takes 3 action points to remove it, which they all have what the action points that it costs to remove the dice and the other actions that you can do. So with that, so I would take 2 actions only because of my special ability to remove an oil dye. And then I kind of want to rescue this one, and it's a contaminated animal, so it would take 2. So then I rescue it and I place it over here on there, and still contaminated side face up, so that we can do our win conditions at the end. I've done my 4 actions. It goes to the cleanup phase. If that turtle and that oil dice were still left, the turtle would then come to this sick bay, which is an end of game trigger. The end of game game loss trigger is if you get all of the different kinds, so all 6 of the different kinds in the sick bay, which you have 2 different sick bays. It doesn't matter which one they're in, but if you get all 6 of them in one of these sick bays, that's an end game trigger. Or 3 of one type. So if you get 3 turtles, that is an end game trigger. You're losing. If you have done any of these win conditions, then you would go ahead and place one of these on there. If you ever lose a win condition, then you would remove it off of there. As long as it's in effect, it stays on there. Also, if you ever complete a column of these oil dice or a row of these animals that are saved, then you get one of these orange cubes, which one of these you will place on here in one of these areas. You have to commit before, so if I really want to do this one, and then later on, oh no, we should have done that one, too late, we've already committed to that one. Likewise, you can't have it this one and then get another one and be like, oh, let's move it down there. Can't do that. So you got to commit to either or and place the cube. And then in the future, once you do have one that is activatable, so this area is activatable, it doesn't have to be completely full, we would be able to use up the card, discard it, and then get a new one in. And then you go ahead and move on to the next player. So the running side might drop them in. And this time they might say, okay, well, we have in sector A, we have a 4. In sector B, we have none. So we have sector D, we have 2 4s. And you don't have to go through and find the side. It just matters where they actually placed. So that can speed it up so you can just place the die out and be done with it. And then they will get to do 4 actions, clean it up, roll some dice. Now there are a couple things. So if we had a sick animal that was contaminated, or an animal that was contaminated, and a die gets rolled and it comes out and it's on that number and that spot, then that animal gets to sick bay. It goes immediately. But if it was previously healthy and the dice comes out and goes there, then it's contaminated. You have until the end of your turn before it gets sick. And then with the weather effects, so normally at the start of every game, you give out a set of these to every player. For remotes, it's a little bit more fiddly than I like. So then whenever these weather dice comes out, you would just simply, you know, whatever they roll. So if, for instance, I had rolled the weather die and I had gotten this marine animal costs 1 more AP to use, which is this cute little turtle, then I would take this token and put it on my space right there. And then at the end of the round, before I start the next time, then I remove it instead of removing it at the end of my turn. If there ever is a time that you roll another die and that's still active and it's another player's turn and they roll the turtle, then I will go ahead and just move the turtle there because it only can affect you one time. So I would just move it from whoever it was currently active to the new active player. So the game ends when either all of your win conditions have been fulfilled on this, which means that this would have to be more full, obviously, or you have one of those lose conditions, whether the sick bay gets too full, or something we did not go over is the spill out. So you could also lose if you have 6 of these spill outs throughout the board. A spill out happens when you place the 3rd die in an area, and of course that would contaminate that. So when you place the 3rd, this spill out happens. If someone would come over to here, take the die away, then this spill out is removed. So as long as you could get it to below 6 before the end of your turn, you could win the game. So it's not getting above 6. Like you could have 7 out at the beginning of your turn, go remove a die, remove the spill out, and then be back under that condition before the end of your turn, and you get to continue playing. Now another thing you can do during your turn is you can choose to do extra actions, And that's you pull a die out of the bag. It could be either oil or weather. So the running side will tell you which one it is. So you pull a die out and place it right there. And then you do your extra action. You can do up to 2 extra action points on your turn. And then the next person will have to grab these 2 and however many of these. And these will actually go up anytime you do a spill out, making it so that you have to pull more and more dice out of the bag. Okay, so that's how you play the spill. As far as cooperative games, I do love cooperative. I am known as the Pandemic Queen, so absolutely adore this genre of gaming. This one, it is fun. I do really enjoy it. It doesn't surpass Pandemic by any means for me, just because Pandemic has more strategy while this is more luck, but it's still really fun, really enjoyable. You go around, you rescue animals. Something I do wish was, while these are presets on here, I kind of wish that they were just, dots or something. So then you just randomized these. And I mean, you can do that as variants if you want to. But it does make it so that it is spread out. But that way, you might have a group of dolphins over here if you do it randomly. And, dolphins kind of swim in packs. So that's kind of more thematic versus spreading out kind of gives you a fairer game. I just like thematics. For the win conditions, they're kind of like push and pull. So, save 2 contaminated animals, remove X amount of oil, and save 3. So you might be able to do less oil, but have to save more animals. So it's like, if you go up in category B, you go down in category C. So that it feels pretty similar, but I do like that there is variety. So you can go, I'm an oil queen. I love removing the oil dice from the game. So let's do the win condition that is removing the most oil die. Let's do that. Or, hey, I usually don't remove the oil. Maybe we should go for the highest removing of the oil die, because that'll be a different way than what we normally play. So, up to your group on whether you want to go more on your strategies or more to just diversify what you do. These characters, they do have some really good ones, but they also have some ones that just don't feel as exciting. This hazmat one, for instance, this is an exciting one. It cost me an extra, or I get to use 1 less action point to remove these oil die, which is huge, because just putting the die back in the bag costs you 1. To remove the die costs you 3. So to get the oil die off the game board costs me just 2 instead of 3. So a lot of the other people will be putting these back in the bag, while I would be going out and just putting them over so that they don't even have to bother us in the future. Because one of the win conditions also, if you don't meet your win conditions, if you survive until this bag is completely empty, then you would get to have to survive that last game. So you could put dice back in the bag, but if it started your turn being empty, you just have to survive until the end of your turn. That could be a win condition, but it's also one of the hardest win conditions, is to survive until the bag is empty. So that's your only option. But removing these just makes it so that you fill up this, you get more cubes to be able to do more of these beneficial things, versus putting it back in the bag. But putting it back in the bag, I can only spend 1 action. I gotta do this, short-term, long-term sort of thing. So this one is used a lot, versus this meteorologist, he gets to affect the weather die, which is cool, on paper. But if you think about it, where's my other weather die? Oh, it's right there. It's 4. You get 4 weather die throughout the entire game. So this will be used at most 4 times. And if he is the one to use the weather to roll it, then those 2 would result. So I mean, it's slightly helpful. But again, 4 times maximum that his power is even going to be in effect. And only when he rolls it would those be in effect. So I find that one kind of a little bit less of an ability. And the officer gets an extra one of these cards to use, which does provide variability. The extra card is always random, so you don't get to set it, versus you already have 4. You rarely ever have all of these 4 completely filled so that you could just have them ready to go at any time. So having a 5th one hasn't been much benefit to me. But the ones that give you like a free action, like this one, once per turn you can push an oil die back. You know, this one you can rescue a healthy one, or spend 1 less action point to rescue a contaminated animal. This one lets you move easier. Those ones seems to be much more exciting than these ones that you'll use. This one I have used, and the extra card was handy 1 time out of the entire game. So I essentially used this power once, which it does have the, when you use a resource, you may replace the newly drawn one with the discard pile, but you have to use the resource. So you have to wait until this person's turn to use that resource card if you want to be able to reuse one. It came in handy 1 time in the game. So I used her power essentially once. And then this one 4 times versus these. I mean, if you're in a good spot, you can use this power twice a turn. This one you use every turn. You can rescue an animal that are in sectors adjacent to your current sector. You use that frequently, not as often as the Marine Vet, who is rescuing animals for free every turn, essentially. And then this one that you get to move around easier, that comes in frequently, but not as frequently either. So it's like, while the variety is nice, some of them just seem to be much less powerful than some of the other ones, which is, I always like it when you have an equal chance to win no matter who you choose. It's just a different way of playing. But the weaker ones, just, I will never play with these two again unless I'm with a new player and they're like, ooh, I really want to play with this one. Like, okay, let's play with that one. So that's just kind of a little bit disappointing to me. But as far as the game, it's cute. These cardboard tokens are really nice. This Dice Tower is awesome. Now, if you have watched, the Dice Tower did a live playthrough of it, and they had, I believe this piece was upside down, and so it caused the dice, when you put them in, to just ramp up and like mess everything up on the board. So you do want to pay attention to this in the fronts to make sure you are building this correctly. Otherwise it will impact your enjoyment of the game for sure. But it is a pretty straightforward game. There are these that pretty much one player pretty much has to have in front of them until you get really familiar with the game. Because while it shows the action points on here, it doesn't show, okay, you get 4 actions on your turn. So you have to, you know, go over that at the beginning of the game, and just each of the phases can be sometimes a little bit tricky to remember. So having this out is just really handy. But only one person needs this. While having the action points, you definitely want to have everybody having that. But overall, I do really enjoy this game. This is a game that I am happy to have backed on Kickstarter. I'm happy to have in my collection. I definitely would recommend it if you do see it out in the wild, to get it up, pick it up, especially if you like cooperative games. Especially if you are drawn to this theme, because unfortunately, in real world, this does happen way too often. So if you are drawn to it and, you know, like the theme, like to feel like you're making a difference, you know, helping out, that would be something that you would like to do. Definitely pick that up. But until next time, just remember to have fun, be present, and be you. Thank you all for watching. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to reach out to us. We would love to hear from you. Also, if you find value in our content, please like, comment, or subscribe. Let a friend or family member know that we exist. Help us spread our channel and bring remote gaming to a table near you. Thank you very much, and have a great day. Okay. Sometimes that happens. More dice! More dice! Oh no, that's the first time that's happened. Yeah!